What if I told you the most powerful lesson you'll ever teach someone won't come from what you say, or even from what you do? It will come from what happens when you're not there. Think about it. We spend so much of our lives showing up, giving, loving, supporting, and yet, the very people we give the most to often stop seeing us. But the moment you step back, the moment your laughter, your energy, your presence is missing, that's when the silence starts to speak louder than anything you've ever said. That's when they finally realize what your presence truly meant. Would you like me to craft 3 alternative intros with different emotional tones, mysterious, bold, and empathetic? So you can choose the one that hooks best when you're always there, when you answer every call on the first ring, when you drop everything to show up the second someone needs you. At first it feels amazing to them. They see you as reliable, as someone they can count on, as someone who will never let them down. But here's the trap. Over time, that consistency turns into background noise. It's not that you suddenly became less valuable, it's that your presence became assumed. It stopped being a gift and started being an expectation. And the human mind is wired that way. When something feels guaranteed, we stop treating it with the reverence it deserves. The danger of always being available is that people forget the cost of your presence. They forget that your time, your love, your energy are treasures, not entitlements. And when that happens, the very thing you give so freely is the very thing they start overlooking. That's why sometimes the most powerful reminder of your worth is not in showing up more. It's in stepping back long enough for them to feel what life is like without you. It's only when something is gone that we truly notice the gap it leaves behind. Absence has a way of shining a spotlight on the things we once overlooked. When you step back, it creates contrast suddenly. The conversations that once felt ordinary are missed. The comfort of your presence is craved, and the way you made someone's world lighter becomes impossible to ignore. You see, when you're always there, people can forget the difference you make. But when you're not, the contrast is undeniable. It's like walking into a room that was always filled with light and suddenly finding it dark. You don't appreciate the glow until it's no longer there. That contrast doesn't just remind them of what you brought. It forces them to reckon with how much emptier life feels without it. And in that silence, they start to measure the true weight of your presence. People don't usually value what they think will always be there. The human heart has this strange way of waking up only when it senses loss. When someone believes your love, your kindness, your energy will never run out, they can slip into taking it for granted. But the moment they feel even a glimpse of losing it, suddenly everything changes. That's when your presence transforms from something expected into something precious. It's the fear of absence that sharpens their vision, that makes them realize you weren't just filling space. You were giving something no one else could give in the way you did. Sometimes it takes stepping back for people to finally see the treasure they had right in front of them. And when they feel that fear of losing you, that's when the weight of your worth finally hits them. When you draw boundaries, you're not pushing people away. You're teaching them how to treat you. Respect isn't built by giving endlessly. It's built by showing that your time and energy have limits, that they are not to be taken lightly. Think about it. When something is rare, when it's not always available, we instinctively handle it with more care. Your presence works the same way. If you're always saying yes, always bending, always showing up no matter how little someone gives back, you unintentionally train them to believe your presence costs nothing. But the moment you create space, the moment you say, "This is my standard and I won't lower it," you change the entire dynamic. You show them that your love, your attention, your effort are privileges, not guarantees. And in that moment, they either rise to meet your standard or they lose access to the very presence they once overlooked. That's how respect is built, not by being endlessly available, but by valuing yourself enough to set the tone for how others value you. Your energy is your currency. Every smile you give, every late night conversation, every ounce of care you pour into someone, it all has value. But here's the mistake so many of us make. We spend it like it's endless, as if our emotional bank account can never run dry. And when people see you giving it out freely, without limit, they stop recognizing its worth. Scarcity creates value. Think about the things in life we treasure most. Gold, diamonds, moments that can't be repeated. They matter because they're rare. Your energy works the same way. When you choose carefully where you invest it, when you stop giving it away to anyone who doesn't honor it, suddenly people pay attention. They lean in. They treat it differently because they know it's not something they can just take for granted. And when your energy becomes precious, so does your presence. Stepping back isn't about punishing someone. It's about honoring yourself. Absence doesn't have to come from anger. It can come from a place of quiet strength. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to stop pouring into a space where your effort isn't seen. Stop giving where it isn't valued. That distance isn't revenge. It's self-respect. It's you saying, I know what I bring, and I refuse to keep proving it to someone who can't or won't see it. And that shift is powerful because it changes the entire story. Instead of chasing validation, you're standing in your own worth. Instead of begging to be noticed, you're allowing your absence to do the talking. And in that silence, in that pause, people finally realize you weren't asking for too much. You were simply giving too much to someone who never earned it. Silence is one of the most underestimated forces we have. We live in a world that is so noisy, where everyone is constantly talking, constantly explaining themselves, constantly justifying, constantly trying to prove their worth with words. But words can lose their power when they're used too often, when they're thrown out cheaply, when they become the only tool we rely on to be understood. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can ever say is nothing at all. Think about it. How many times have you tried to explain to someone how much you give? How many times have you said, "Don't you see everything I do for you? Don't you notice how much effort I put in?" And yet, the more you talk, the less it seems to sink in. You raise your voice, you repeat yourself, you try different angles, but their behavior doesn't change. And that's when frustration sets in, because you start to wonder, what more do I need to say for them to finally understand my value? But here's the truth. Sometimes the reason they don't see your value is because you keep spelling it out for them. You keep giving them the soundtrack of your presence, so much so that they've stopped really listening. Silence cuts through all of that. Silence is disruptive. Silence makes people pay attention in ways words never can. Imagine someone who's used to hearing from you every morning, every evening, every time something happens in your life. You're their comfort, their reassurance, their constant. And then one day, instead of a lecture, instead of another long conversation about how underappreciated you feel, there's just silence. No message, no call, no explanation, just the weight of your absence pressing down on their world. Suddenly, the quiet becomes deafening. They check their phone and notice it's empty. They wait for your voice and realize it isn't coming. That silence says more than any speech ever could, because silence forces people to confront the truth they've been ignoring. When you stop explaining, they're left alone with their own thoughts, And in that space, guilt creeps in, awareness creeps in, reflection creeps in. They start replaying the times you gave without them noticing, the times you stayed when you could have left, the moments they dismissed as ordinary that were anything but. Silence becomes the mirror they can't look away from. Now, here's the beautiful part. Silence doesn't just change how they see you. It changes how you see yourself. When you stop trying to convince someone of your value, you give yourself the gift of peace. You stop wasting energy on speeches that fall on deaf ears. You stop begging for scraps of appreciation, and you start recognizing that your worth doesn't depend on how loudly you can make your case. Your worth was always there, whether they acknowledged it or not, and I want you to picture this. Imagine walking out of a room where you've been talking and no one seems to care. You've been pouring out your words, your explanations, your love, and it's as if they're staring right past you. Now imagine you just stop. You stand up, you walk out, and you leave silence behind. What happens? Suddenly they turn their heads. Suddenly they notice the emptiness. That's what silence does. It creates presence through absence. We're conditioned to believe that if we just say the right thing, if we explain ourselves perfectly, if we keep talking, eventually they'll understand. But most of the time, people don't learn by hearing, they learn by feeling. They don't recognize your value because you told them about it. They recognize your value when they feel the lack of it. And silence creates that lack in the most profound way. Let me give you an example you've probably lived yourself. Think about a song you love, a song you play so often that eventually you stop even hearing it. It becomes background noise. But the moment you stop playing it for a while, weeks go by, months even, and then suddenly one day it comes on again. What happens? It hits differently, you feel it again, you remember why you loved it in the first place. That's what silence does for your presence. It turns what had become background noise into something unforgettable again. And here's what makes silence so powerful. It requires strength. It's easy to keep talking, to keep pleading, to keep pushing for recognition. It's much harder to hold your ground in silence, to resist the urge to fill the gap, to sit with the discomfort of not being heard, and still choose not to explain yourself. That's real power, because silence says, I don't need to prove myself anymore. My absence will do the talking for me. And it will. People will notice the silence. They will notice the gap where your energy used to flow so freely. They will notice that life feels a little heavier without your words, without your presence, without your laughter. Silence is the reminder they can't escape, but I want you to understand this. It's not about being manipulative. It's not about using silence as a trick to make someone chase you. It's about reclaiming your dignity. It's about deciding that if someone can't see your worth when you're speaking, then you won't keep exhausting yourself trying to force them to. Silence is a form of self-love. It's you saying, I know what I bring, and I don't need to keep shouting it to be heard. And there's something magnetic about that. People are drawn to those who can hold their silence. Think about it. When someone walks away from drama, when someone refuses to argue endlessly, when someone doesn't chase, it creates a gravity around them. That quiet confidence makes people lean in. That absence makes people want to step closer. Silence doesn't push people away, it pulls the right ones in, and it reveals the wrong ones for who they are. So the next time you feel the urge to explain yourself again, to repeat your worth, to shout over someone's lack of awareness, pause. Ask yourself, what if my silence could say this louder? Because it will. Silence has a way of piercing through walls that words can't touch. It lingers, it unsettles, it reminds, and most importantly, it protects your peace while teaching them a lesson they'll never forget. Your silence will become the thing they remember most, not because you withheld, not because you played games, but because it was the moment they realized you were no longer trying to be heard. And in that moment, they finally heard you louder than ever. Absence has a way of filtering out what words and effort never could. When you step back, the people who truly value you will feel that space, and they'll move toward you because your presence meant something real to them. They'll notice the silence, they'll reach out, they'll ask where you are, because losing your energy isn't something they're willing to accept. But the ones who never truly valued you, they won't fight for it. They'll drift, and as painful as that can feel in the moment, it's actually the greatest gift your absence can give you. Because instead of wasting years trying to convince someone to see your worth, absence does the work for you. It shows you, without doubt, who belongs in your life and who never deserved the front row seat you gave them. It strips away the noise, the excuses, the maybe they'll change, and it leaves you with the truth. Absence is a filter, and what's left after the filtering process is clarity. The people who matter will reveal themselves, and the ones who don't will quietly fade into the background where they belonged all along. Your worth has never been defined by who noticed it and who didn't. It was never measured by how loudly someone clapped for you, how often they praised you, or whether they even said thank you. Your worth existed long before they failed to recognize it, and it will exist long after. Too often we fall into this trap of thinking, if they don't appreciate me, maybe I'm not enough. Maybe I need to do more, give more, prove more. But their blindness does not diminish your value. It only exposes theirs. A diamond doesn't lose its brilliance just because someone is too distracted to see it sparkle. The sun doesn't stop shining just because someone forgot to look up. And you, your kindness, your love, your consistency do not become less extraordinary just because someone else treated them as ordinary. Their recognition might feel validating, but it's not defining. The only recognition you truly need is your own. Because when you stand in the knowledge of your own worth, absence stops being about teaching them and starts being about reminding yourself, you were never less, they were simply unable to see more. The truth is, the right people won't need your absence to know what your presence means. They won't wait until you're gone to appreciate you because they already recognize the gift you are while you're there. These are the people who lean in when you speak, who don't need constant reminders to say thank you, who see the small things you do as something extraordinary, not something expected. With them, your presence never becomes background noise. It's always music, and that's how you know the difference. Because the right people don't treat you as replaceable, they treat you as rare. They don't gamble with your presence, they guard it, they cherish it, they celebrate it. And when you find those people, you won't need silence, you won't need absence, you won't need distance to prove your worth. They'll see it right there in real time, and that's when it clicks. All along, you weren't too much, you weren't asking for too much. You were simply giving your presence to the wrong people. The right ones, they'll never need to lose you to understand how lucky they are to have you. And so, the lesson is simple but life-changing. You are not here to convince anyone of your worth. You are not here to beg for appreciation, to exhaust yourself trying to be heard, or to prove yourself to people who choose not to see you. Your presence is already powerful. Your love, your effort, your energy, they're already rare. And sometimes, yes, your absence will be the only thing that finally wakes people up. But by the time they realize, you'll already know the truth. You were never ordinary, and you never needed their validation to be extraordinary. The right people will recognize it while you're still there, and those are the people worthy of your presence. So carry yourself with the quiet confidence of someone who doesn't need to be noticed to know they matter. Because whether they see it today, tomorrow, or too late, your presence has always been the gift.